Hey everybody, JJ here. Welcome back for another Wednesday of Zoom Networking. I have a phenomenal guest for you guys today. I say it all the time. One of the biggest wins we have is the people that we develop relationships with, that we meet, that we ideally turn business relationships into friendships. I happened to be in Boston several months ago, met an unbelievable guy that is charismatic, magnetic, and I found out afterwards is one hell of a smart guy when it comes to real estate. Our guest speaker today is none other than my good friend, Jimmy Rex. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, JJ?
I am fantastic, man. So you're back from Norway.
Back from Norway, yep.
Hot dog. How long were you in Norway?
I was there for a week. So
you had to suffer through going up there, huh?
exactly. This is my 92nd country. So I have a goal to get to all of them in my life and as quickly as possible. So that's why every year, me and some high school buddies, we pick a new country and we just go spend a week together.
Well, hopefully you live for 90, so however many years you need to get there. But how long ago did you start this traveling thing?
About 6 or 7 years. What happened is I had a buddy that he had a goal. His name was Eric, and he was going to go to the most countries in the shortest amount of time ever. And I think he was at 57 in less than a year, and they actually died paragliding. And it kind of just woke me up to life. It was like I'd been working as a real estate agent, working 70-hour weeks and just making the money, but losing a lot of life. And it just hit me as like, you know what, like this could be taken from me at any moment. And so I decided I just made it a thing. I made it a priority. And so since that time, and in the last 6-7 years, I've been to over 90 countries.
Wow. So let me ask you, where are you from originally?
From Salt Lake City, Utah. That's where I live at now.
That's a beautiful country up there as well.
It is.
So now, you're a real estate genius, in my opinion. You've got your own group, you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur, business person. Is real estate something you got in like right out of high school, from the beginning, or what was your path there?
Yeah, no, my dad had been a realtor when I was really young, and then he kind of got out of it. But I always kind of had an interest in it. And it's funny, I went to a junior college and I went to go to this 4-year school to get my degree finished, but I didn't know you have to apply like 6 months in advance. So I kind of had 6 months with nothing to do. So I decided to get my real estate license. That was in 2005. And, my first year as an agent, I really took off. I sold 60 homes with no assistant. And I said, well, I guess I found my career. And so I ended up in real estate and been doing it ever since.
Wow. So, are you currently in Utah? Do you live in another part of the country, or?
Yeah, so I live in Utah. I like to live in Utah and leave often. So, I'm going to LA tomorrow for some events. And last week, like I said, I was in Norway. The week after that, I'm headed to Vegas. I'm always doing stuff, and I like to just move around and explore everything. But Utah's home.
Now, when did you start training or coaching, or when did you start that aspect of your path?
As I started coaching real estate agents about 6 years ago, I just had a lot of them reaching out to me. They'd see my success and wanted to kind of piggyback on what I was doing. I actually wrote a book called The Next Wave of Influence in Real Estate. And that kind of put me in a lot of people's radars as well. And so I was getting asked to speak. I was getting asked to coach, and started coaching for agents, and realized very quickly I didn't like coaching real estate agents because I didn't want to talk people into going to work every day. That's basically what I was doing. And I enjoy much more teaching, gaining wealth through real estate. And so I kind of made a pivot a couple of years ago and started doing a lot more coaching, training, and sales for real estate investors. But I've been on and off about 6 years now.
Wow. Yeah. I've seen your website. I've seen some of the things you do, the people you hang out with. And obviously we hear that age-old story that we're the result of, somewhat the 5 people we spend most of our time with. And you're rubbing some elbows with some rock stars, my friend. I'm very impressed with you and your path. And you speaking for myself, it's an honor to call you a friend, to know you. And it's an honor for us to have you here today. So I want to thank you for coming out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, you're a person that, it comes from contribution all the time. And that's the people I like to surround myself with. That's the people I like to give my time and energy to. And so that's why I agreed to be here.
Cool. Well, let's get right to it. I know you got some value content and gold nuggets to bring to the group. So, Jimmy, take it away.
Well, thanks, JJ. So between me and my real estate partner, Tyler, we've sold about 7,000 homes to investors now. And one of the reasons why we got into the investor game was when I was younger, nobody really taught me how to sell real estate the right way or how to buy it, I guess. And so unfortunately, I made pretty much every mistake that you can make. I was buying homes that weren't cash flowing. I was caught up in the hype. This was 2005, 2006. In November of 2006, I owned 13 properties, like 2 of which cash flowed at the time. And so there was this craze. Everybody was saying that real estate had never gone down. It was never going to go down. I was young. I was naive. This in hindsight, obviously we know that's not the case. But at that time, that was kind of what was, the message that was being portrayed. Thankfully, I had a really good mentor that saved me. I ended up only getting stuck with 2 of those homes. I sold the rest before it collapsed. But between those 2 homes alone, I lost about $150,000. The reason I had to sell those homes at a huge loss was because I simply didn't have the cash flow to keep them. And so I learned very early on a lot of the things not to do. And I kind of wish I just had a mentor. I had somebody that could have taught me the right way to do it. And so I started this entire program around real estate investing. I wrote a pamphlet, the 35-page book thing that teaches people the right way to invest in real estate. And ultimately, I'm trying to be the person that I needed when I was younger, because I was just throwing darts at a wall and I was listening to the wrong people. And again, I had brokers that meant well, but they were giving me bad advice. And back then, you could put nothing down on a home. You got an 80% first with a 20% second. You're paying out $2,500 a month for a house that rents for $1,800. And you didn't care because the house was going up $5 to $10 grand a month. Well, when the market turned and you got a $700, $800 payment more than what you're bringing in, it gets really tough to hold the properties, especially since I was in real estate. I was an owner of a Keller Williams office. I was also an agent. And so all of my income was tied to real estate, which got really difficult. And so I ended up having to sell everything I had. And it's interesting because I like to use the example. One of the houses that I bought back then, I paid for this house about $225,000. And, at its peak, and back then it got up to like 325, and then it crashed. It was down to like 210, 200. I ended up having to sell it because it had a negative cash flow. Well, my buddy Tyler, my real estate partner, that exact same time, he bought a house for like 180 and it dropped to like 135. But he cash flowed his house $100. And so the only difference between he and I is I was losing $600-700 a month. He was making $100 a month. So he kept his. I had to sell mine at a huge loss. Well, that house today, I know what that house is worth now. It's worth about $650,000. The one that I sold that was worth $250 at the time. His house he sold last summer for close to $400,000. So he made several $100,000 where I lost this money and couldn't hold on the property. The only difference was the cash flow that we held. And so what we realized with our investors is if we can educate them and teach them the right way to do it, then they're going to be with us forever. And we're going to be able to sell them so many homes that they'll be glad they have. And the litmus test for us is if the market were to collapse tomorrow, will I still be glad that I own this home? And if the answer to that question is yes, then you should buy the property. If the answer is no, then you shouldn't buy the property. And the entire difference between whether that is a thing or not comes down to really the cash flows that you have on the property. Because a real estate investment, you're making money 4 different ways, right? You have cash flow, which is number one, which was the principle that we always say, if it doesn't cash flow, it's a non-starter for us. We don't buy the property. The second one is appreciation, which you hope goes up, but you don't want to ever bank on it. The third one is you're paying down your principal, right? The principal depreciation. And the fourth one is on taxes. And, with cost segregation, some of these things that have come out the last couple of years, I saved last year alone $375,000 I would have paid in taxes because I was able to use cost segregation with some of these properties that I own. I think if I own over 30 real estate properties now, I was able to use all that and take that depreciation all at once. And so you see there's 4 ways to make money. But if you don't have the cash flow, then the one that's urgent becomes that because you're coming out of pocket every single month. So what we decided to do with every single investor that we work with as a real estate team is anybody that's going to work with us, we sit them down for a 30 to 60 minute consultation and we just go through all of the different things of what they're trying to accomplish. Because what we realized with most real estate investors, they didn't really have a plan or a strategy. They weren't really investors. They were speculators. They just wanted to try to make some money. They didn't really know what that looked like. Half of them come in not knowing if they want to, flip homes or buy for the long term or short term or what they're doing. So what we would do is sit down with every person and just map it out. And we'd make a pro forma for them that maps this thing out for the next 10 and 20 years. So you can see exactly how many expenses you're going to have, how much money you need to cash flow, how much you can afford to buy, how much that home has to rent for to be able to afford it. By the time we build this thing out, I mean, it's an analytical's dream, right? They're looking at this entire thing, and then it's just plug and play. We find a property, it either fits or it doesn't. And that takes the emotion out of it so that you don't get caught up. Because here's the problem with, buying real estate on emotion is that most of the people that are pitching you real estate are really good at sales. It's an emotional thing. They're really good at pitching a sale. And so they all sound good when you hear them. Well, when you really break it down, you take the numbers, you can't argue with numbers. They either have the cash flow or they don't. It either makes sense or it doesn't. And so again, for these last 5-6 years, me and my partner, we've been selling a lot of properties in states like Arkansas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Florida, some of these states where you can get homes under $200,000 still, or under $250,000 that have a $200, $300, $400 a month cash flow. So when the market pulls back, like it's just done, you're still glad you own that property. You're still paying down the principal, half of your payment every single month. You're still, even though it's not appreciating, it's not depreciating, you're still getting the tax benefits, and you have that cash flow. And so when all these other people around me were speculating again, it's all the same stuff was happening the last 3 years that I saw in 2005, 6, 7, which was, there's people buying townhomes here in Utah for $575,000. Well, those don't cash flow, but they're like, wow, the market's going up. Who cares? We'll get all the other benefits. It's like, that gets really tricky really quick. And I got tempted even to like, oh, I could make a lot more money if I'd sell these people to these bigger homes in Utah as opposed to getting a referral fee for sending them out of the state. But we knew if we stuck to our guns, we were doing the best by our clients. And so we ended up selling, like I said, we've sold over 7,000 homes now. Every single week we're selling right now, even in this market, between 8 to 12 homes a month to investors that are buying, a week, that are buying homes in these different states. And so what we wanted to do is just foolproof, make a way for people to make money, whether it's a good market, bad market, steady market, stale market, it doesn't really matter. People ask me, they say, hey, is it a good time to buy real estate? And the answer is always the same. Well, it depends. It's a good time to buy real estate if you buy the right way, if you're buying the right type of real estate. And so for us, again, it all comes down to those figures and everything else. So as the market starts to turn, the number one rule I want you guys to remember is no matter what else, it has to have cash flow. If it doesn't cash flow, don't buy the property. Even if you got every other reason to buy it, that's like a non-starter. If it isn't, and people say, well, how much should it cash flow? Well, enough that you won't get in trouble. What I like to say is for every $100,000 you're paying for the property, it should cash flow $100 a month. That's a pretty conservative number where you can still find things, but you're not going to get in trouble. And it's not unreasonable. Like some people are like, well, if it doesn't cash flow at least $300 for every 100 grand I'm buying, I'm not buying. I'm like, well, good luck. You're not going to find anything. But, as long as you've got a little bit of cash flow in there, you can start to build up your reserve. You start to build up those accounts and you'll be okay. And the second thing that we look for is the types of properties that do well regardless of the market. So let me explain. So where people get in trouble is they try to buy properties that are too expensive or they don't really fit. What we decided was there's a market for a certain kind of home, whether the market's going up or down. And so we found this sweet spot that's very close and just below the median income for that area of what the average person should be buying, the affordability rate. And what that means is, so in a good market like we've had the last few years, you get a lot of first-time buyers that start buying these homes up, right? And so there's always a market for them. Well, in a bad market, or if the market starts to pull back or the economy pulls back, what happens is all the people that overextended just above the median price, they still want a good home. They don't want to go down to nothing. And so what they'll do is they'll sell and they'll move into these types of homes that we bought as well. So whether it's a good market or a bad market, there's a ton of demand for the type of homes that we're buying. And that way we never get stuck with the type of home that won't sell. And then we have a criteria for what we buy as well. It has to be 15 years or newer. It's got to have at least one car garage. It's got to be within 10 minutes of a freeway. It's got to have somewhat of a yard. It's got to have at least 3 bedrooms. By having just that as our criteria, what happens is you get a higher percentage of people that will rent that home. We want to find people that will make the home theirs. They're going to move in for 5-7 years and we're never going to hear from them other than collecting our check every single month. And so for us, and by the way, I always say that there's a million ways to make money in real estate. Just for me, for the simplicity of it, this became a product that we went all in on, and it's the easiest, fastest way for us to create a product that everyone can find, that everybody can buy, that you're happy that you own, that is very stress-free. I went through the downturn. So I was sitting across the table from close friends that the husband had bought an investment property The wife told him not to. They're sitting there about to have a divorce because she's so mad at him about this money. They'd lost 120 grand. It was their entire savings or whatever it might be. And I have a little bit of PTSD from all that. And so for me, I just never want to sell somebody a home I wouldn't buy myself. And so it's been a really fun way for us to help people build that real estate portfolio and kind of just create wealth. And so anyway, that's kind of what my message isn't long. I just wanted to share that real quick. Like as the market turns, pay attention because there's opportunity in every single market. And people might say now's not a good time to buy. Well, it is if it fits that criteria. And so look for those opportunities because every market, like in the last 3 years, it just came really hard to find good houses. Well, now rates are up. A couple other things are happening, but there will be more deals. And so you just got to, be in the trenches, finding the right properties. And then when they pop up, you take advantage of it. So JJ, back to you, my man. That's what I wanted to share today. That's my whole message.
Jimmy, that's fantastic, brother. I mean, gold nugget after gold nugget. I'm glad this is recorded because I can see people are getting like replaying that because you're just dropping gold nuggets all over the place. For the new investor, obviously you've got a bunch of tips there on what to do. I don't know what I've got a couple questions, we might have a couple from the audience. And if you guys do, feel free to click the reaction button if you know how to do that and raise your hand. But what do you think are some of the challenges that a new investor has to be aware of or look out for? Is it people that are not legitimate in offering money or trying to partner with them or?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest mistake that I see people make is anytime you have a lack of education around something, you're scared of that thing, right? And you make bad decisions. And so the more you can get educated on, you guys are on here, you're putting the time in, so you're learning. But then the second biggest mistake. So the first thing I'd say is you got to get the education. So keep learning, keep growing. Like there's so much out there now. Back when I first started investing, there wasn't much. I mean, I remember going to the back of the Realtor magazine and ordering some CD to learn how to buy real estate. Like there wasn't much out there. Now it's the opposite problem. There's so much noise. There's so much out there. It's hard to figure out which thing to listen and spend your time on. But the second problem I see is they usually either try to do it themselves, not using an agent, or they use an agent that doesn't really know how to do investment properties. And so the first thing you want to do when you're interviewing an agent, by the way, when I buy out of state, I use an agent. Like I absolutely believe in the power of using a great agent, especially when you're buying, because they'll be able to, there's little nuances, knowing which neighborhood, knowing which houses you're going to rent for more, knowing which area you do or don't want to be in, all those things. But the mistake that people make is they use their normal agent when they buy investment properties. And the problem is most agents don't even know what makes a good real estate investment property. Most of them don't buy them. So when I wrote my book, The Next Wave of Influence in Real Estate, I interviewed 100 of the top millennial real estate agents across the country. And one of my questions was to talk about their own personal real estate portfolio. It was my biggest takeaway from the book. Half the agents, these were the top agents in the country, half of them did not own real estate, their own real estate, half of them. And so a lot of agents, even though they're top agents, don't know the investor game. And so the first question you want to ask a real estate agent is, what's your own personal real estate portfolio? Show it to me. Like, I want to see what properties they're buying. I want to see if they're cash flowing. I want to see that they know what the hell they're doing. And if they don't own at least 6, 7, 8 properties themselves, I would not use them as my real estate agent. So you want to find one that really specializes in investing, because they're going to be the one that's going to know the nuances and how to navigate that for you to find the right place.
Wow, that's a great point. That really is. I hadn't thought about that myself. I'm actually looking for properties. I live in Southern California, and This is not the place to do real estate, as most investors know. People say, oh, you can do business here, you can do business here, but I think when you're getting going, and I'm still on the newer end of the spectrum, so to speak. So I'm looking for the Midwest, and sometimes for those newer investors of us, it gives us a lower buy-in, maybe a little bit higher return of investment. But as we get more expensive, I might follow you back to California, because it sounds like you're doing business out here. One of the things we hear about is find the deal, find the money, and obviously, as you're saying, using an agent can help us find properties in the parts of the country or state or county that we're looking in. But the other aspect is find the money. What are some of the challenges or pitfalls we might want to look out for when looking for hard money lenders or private money lenders? I've heard on occasion that some people are just not ethical. Is there any suggestion you have when it comes to evaluating our options for funding?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to understand what you're doing. So they're all ethical if you have the right paperwork, and you've got to know what you're signing. You've got to know what you're agreeing to. That's the most important thing. You know, if you or catch yourself using hard money and you don't already own a lot of properties, you can get in trouble pretty quick. And so what I would recommend is find partners. Like if you find the right deal, the money's easy. Hell, you find a good enough deal, I'll partner with you. You know what I mean? I don't care where it's at, if it's the right deal. And so the money really is the easiest part once you find a good enough deal. Usually if you're borrowing hard money or you're doing those kind of things, you're probably overextending yourself or whatever that might be. And I tell everybody, if you're not making at least 200 grand a year in your day job, you're just not making enough money to get ahead. And so you've got to spend extra money to become a better asset. You have to know how to make more money than that. And so you've got to pay to get more educated, to get a coach, to get mentors, to do those things. And then once you can make $300,000-400,000 a year, if you can learn to live on 100,000 still, now you got a lot of money. You can start making a dent, buying 3, 4, 5 properties a year. But spend 1 or 2 years getting great at making more money. And then after you're making more money, then it's a lot easier to make that money. Because I very rarely use hard money to this day. It just eats up so much of your profits. It puts a lot more stress. I don't like to be stressed out. And so, we have a deal right now. I'll be honest, this was a deal that we did, and we bought it. We're into it. It's a flip because I have a company that flips homes as well. And I don't like doing hard money, so I bring on partners. Well, in this particular deal, the partner's a friend of mine and whatever else. And we bought this house, and the market kind of made this shift. And we would have made 50 to 60 grand on this house. Instead, we're losing probably 30, 35 grand. But if it was on hard money, we would have had to have fire sold it. I mean, we still were able to get out of it where it's like, it sucks. But like at the end of the day, it's part of the business of flipping homes. But if we were on hard money, we would have lost another 12, 14 grand in hard money. We would have lost another. We would have probably had to sell it quicker and cheaper. And so I don't like getting in those positions where it puts me at a huge disadvantage. And so for me, it's just, avoid hard money if you can. But if you're using it, just make sure you understand it can be a huge asset, especially if you're buying enough good deals. But, it's a really easy way to, I got a lot of friends that have gone broke trying to borrow hard money.
I took something out of the hard money thing you're talking about, that it's always said, if the numbers work, the money's there. And, a good part of that is you said, hey, come see me. Jimmy's on my list. I'll come see Jimmy. But, and it's because I know you and because you know me. And, through the part of getting money, obviously, the more visible we make ourselves, the more people we'll meet and the more relationships that we will meet. And, that is a great impact on our success. For the new investor that might be watching this, whether they're on the call now or whether they're watching the YouTube channel, what is the impact? What is the importance, you think, of networking in the success of the new investor?
Yeah, it's, both for education, for deal flow, for money flow, all the above. It's all going to be how many people right? Like all the best deals I've ever got were brought to me. People just know I'm in real estate. I always say, don't be a secret agent. Let people know you're buying homes. When you go walk through a property, put it on your Instagram, show people what you're doing. People, in fact, the deal I'm doing right now, it was my older brother's high school best friend. His mom died. And he called me up. He said, hey, we want to get rid of this house. And she was a hoarder. It was awful. We went and looked at it, and we bought it for $330,000. We flipped it. We'll close in 20 days. And we're making about 75 grand on that deal. That was just brought to me because I knew somebody. He knows I'm in real estate. He goes, hey, I trust you. You tell me what you'd be willing to pay for this. I'll tell you if we want to do it. But those deals come to you a lot more often. I don't do marketing to find deals. You have to spend 20, 30 grand a month to really make a dent if that's the way you're doing it. And so for me, it's all word of mouth. And so I just try to show everybody what I'm doing, put myself out there. And agents all the time, they all know who I am in my community. And so they'll hit me up. I get hit up by agents probably more than anything. Like, hey, man, I got this deal that somebody should buy and flip. I just don't know what to do with it. Are you interested? I'm like, hell yeah, dude, I'll get you paid twice. I'll get you paid on the buy and then when we sell it. And, if I'm making 80 grand, I'm happy to let him make his 18, 20 grand in commissions. And so just by letting, people know that you're out there. And, I think the thing that helps me more than anything is being the kind of person that like follows through. Like people know if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. There's nothing more annoying than somebody that brings you a deal and they don't have the numbers figured out. They don't have the work all figured out. It's not actually under contract. It's not actually for sale. So I end up wasting 20 minutes figuring out the comps. And then I'm like, all right, let's put the offer in. They're like, well, I don't even know if they're going to sell it. And I'm like, dude, this isn't what we're doing, And so it's really important to make sure that you follow through with what you're going to do and that you have that dialed in. And if you do, then investors are going to love working with you, and it's pretty easy to find them.
Fantastic. So, I think we're going to roll into the breakout rooms in a minute, but do you have any contact info you want to share? Can I share your Instagram page on the monitor, your Facebook on the monitor?
Yeah, you bet. I put my Instagram in the chat as well. It's Mr. Jimmy Rex. And if you guys all want to give me a follow, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. And any real questions, I always answer. I'm happy to help. So I have a podcast. We're almost 400 episodes. I interview exceptional people living extraordinary lives. So I've interviewed, Grant Cardone and Andy Frisella. I just interviewed last week. My episode I'm dropping tomorrow with Spencer Raskoff, the founder of Zillow. So it's, I got a lot of prominent people on my podcast, and I've been working hard on that thing for several years.
Wow. You are amazing. For me, someone that's following in your wake, you're a true inspiration. Like I said, when I met you, I knew you're an awesome guy because you're just so magnetic and charismatic and just full of energy. And as I've gotten to know more and more about you, including the Zoom call today, I'm just continuing to be more and more amazed at who you are and how you present yourself and the value that you bring to the community.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's fun.
Cool. So we're going to sign off here in just a minute. If you guys are on the call right now, stick around. We're going to have breakout rooms, and some of you can be in a room with Jimmy and get to meet the infamous Jimmy Rex. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, guys, please like Jimmy's presentation. Please leave comments below, and stay tuned for more. Zoom networking, Flipside with JJ. We'll have more videos and more guest speakers coming up soon. So thanks so much, and we'll see you guys soon. Over and out.